Yeah. Woohoo! Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. Love that music. All right, Siesta Ocho. That means it's time for City Business with Michael Halley. Joining us in the house, we have Jason Strong of the FMC, ILC, Fairfield Media Center, on the video machine. I think that's what they're called these days, picturing something. This is radio, KRUU-FM 100.1 in the local FM area dial, KRUU-FM.com on the World Wide Web machine. And we are going to catch you up to snuff with City Business. Michael Halley, 4th Ward City Council person. It's good to see you. You can catch this after each City Council session the following Tuesday at lunchtime, 12:30, Thursday, 6:30 p.m., the following Monday, breakfast time, 6:30 a.m. How you doing, sir?
Good. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. And pretty decent weather so far. I guess we can handle 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
There must be something coming behind this.
Oh, I'm sure.
But anyway, how you doing and what's up?
All right. Well, this is an informal review of our regular City Council meeting from November 27th, 2017. We had one public appearance from Mr. Rick Shattuck, who wanted to talk about Bitcoin. Yeah, from the Fairfield, Iowa Association for Digital Currency. Mm-hmm. Interesting timing because Bitcoin was all over the news yesterday.
Yeah, made it to 10,000.
It's somewhat legit. I'll say it put that way. You can't buy a pop with a Bitcoin, maybe, but I don't fully understand it. But it was interesting to learn a little bit more about it.
Well, I tell you what, we interviewed Rick in June. He wanted to donate something. I think it was at 2,000 then. I feel reluctant that we didn't jump on that. It's at 10,000 now.
Yep.
Whatever all that means, there are a few iterations to it, but it is an interesting thing. It's being talked about now, and obviously it's going great guns at the moment. What was your takeaway, or what was he?
He was just more or less talking about the way that individuals can be involved in getting a machine called a miner that just runs and works all day making Bitcoins. I'm not quite sure. I can't tell you exactly how the whole thing works, but
I know there's a logarithm algorithm that and so many can be made, and somehow
he mostly talked about the kind of the process of how a person would go about it. Not so much a proposal for how the city could start incorporating Bitcoin, though. I think that was the vision at some point. He said there's still some bugs to be worked out. Maybe some intelligent people, some creative thinking could work them out, and then it could become an alternate currency. But I know that here in Fairfield, we've had many propositions of alternate currencies.
Yep.
Never fully panned out, but this one seems to have something behind it. So it's being traded. And so it's for real.
Well, I know some people that are doing it that are into it and seem to be, talking about it. We'll just see where it goes. And it has not been through an economic downturn yet. I don't know what happens in that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm predicting anything, but anyway, we'll see. But that's interesting. Yeah. So were there questions or just comments made?
Not really. We just listened to his presentation and thanked him and moved on to physically looking at it, a very long agenda, but it didn't take as long as we all feared. So we had a tax abatement application for 1203 South Main. So this is just a reminder for anybody who does renovations on a property, if it adds value to the assessed value, which is what your property taxes are based on, please apply for an abatement so that the increased valuation, that added value that you put on, at least you don't have to pay that extra property tax for a number of years. Just an incentive that the city offers for people to repair property.
On the other side of that, if people try to sneak something, what happens?
Exaggerate.
If they get fined or one way or the other. I mean, if they do something.
Somebody says that they've
or inadvertently don't say.
Well, there's a difference between what you spend and what the assessed value goes up. So what we're doing on the city council level is saying, yes, we'll send your application to the assessor's office. The assessor for the county decides how much additional value is added. So I'm not an expert in this, but I've heard real estate people say that you can spend a lot and not add much value in certain areas of the house, and some areas where you spend, it almost all goes towards added valuation. So if the name of the game is to increase the value of the property, there are certain ways to do that, and some spending might be more, it gives you that feeling that you've improved it, that you like it, but may not add value. So we don't.
Is there any kind of formulation for that, or
I have no idea exactly how the assessor works it out.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's
I know that there kind of is, because I remember when I was a homeowner, I don't get this in the mail. I'm still a homeowner, but I used to get a little card every year from the assessors asking if we added any bathrooms or any finished space. So if you have a basement that's unfinished, that doesn't get counted into your total square footage. But if you finish it, put up sheetrock and such, suddenly that gets added. So they do have some sort of formula for how they do that. I don't believe the assessor has been to every property in town and looked inside and out. So they're just kind of going off of these general things. But that would be a good question for the county assessor. Maybe he would be interested in coming in doing an interview sometime.
Yeah.
All right. So these next several public hearing resolution items are around 2 urban renewal districts for 2 areas of town. The first is the industrial park in the west end of town, 23rd Street, south of Burlington. Traffic's device just recently expanded. So they're a manufacturer of the cones and the various, I want to say devices. It's too obvious, but the orange cones and the things that you see marking when there's road construction to kind of get you where you need to be.
Highway accoutrements, we could say.
Yeah, so they just expanded, but there's a road. It's West Taylor. That's kind of a stub out there. Mm-hmm. So the plan is to take the increment, which is the new property tax valuation from their expansion that wasn't there before, capture some of that and use it to pave 750 50 feet of street of West Taylor. So by extending that road, they'll create an actual turnaround for traffic, so they don't back in and go back out. Right now they have to back in, turn around, turn their trucks back the way they came. This will enable them to do a turnaround. They actually are planning another expansion. Additionally, it'll open up a number of acres that FEDA owns, Fairfield Economic Development Association owns. This street will then grant access to that. So there could be potential other development out in that industrial park. So again, it's not funded by my property tax or your property tax. It's funded by the property tax generated by that improvement in that district, that urban renewal district. And so we're moving forward on that. The second one is Lincoln Avenue, and that's across the street from the hospital. So on the east side of Highway 1, South Main, where there's a fourplex that was built by neighborhood developers. So this one, the plan isn't as clear because the city is still negotiating with the developer on a development agreement. So we're still moving forward on creating the urban renewal district so that we can capture increment. But the increment, what we need is the developer to say, yes, we will create X amount of assessed value by this time, so that the city can then know that value is coming in before we agree to spend money on extending. It would be South Court out there. There would be an extension of a road running north-south. So again, the way that some people use TIF is the city would borrow to make some sort of infrastructure improvement and then wait for whatever's going to be built up to have value and then capture the increment or the property tax generated by that new development to pay off the loan. The city generally doesn't want to do that. We want to know that the increment is going to be there. So that's what the agreement's about. The agreement hasn't been reached yet. So this one is we still need to go through this if we want to be able to create a TIF district. But until that development agreement's in hand, the city will not be spending any money or doing any work.
That makes sense. I mean, if things change.
Yeah. So you just got to that's what the agreement is. It's like, all right, we spend this money and now you have to build the thing that pays for it. So pretty standard stuff. That was supposed to be a little Austin Powers. Pretty standard stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, see, I make a lot of jokes that reference things that I'm seeing my age now. I'll joke about something and then young people will be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I say something about howdy doody time and all that, and it's like...
Yeah, see, I never watched the show, but I know what you're talking about.
No.
All right, so because the Tyler Street extension, the increment is already there, the expansion happened, we can start moving on that one. So we entered an agreement with French Rentaker Associates for the work they'll do on the engineering for that. And so I believe that is going to be probably, the bids will be let in March next year. And then the work will be done late summer next year to extend that street. So more on that as it unfolds. We're hosting another public hearing. Has to do with step 2. So the second phase of the sewer lines, because apparently some property owners who are within certain distance from that were not notified, and we by law have to notify them, give them 30 days, allow them to come to a public hearing. So I think it's only 2 or 3 who didn't get notified. They know about the project, but this is something by law, we have to do. So instead of having a separate meeting, we'll just have it at our regular city council member meeting on December 18th. So we're having that one December meeting. Moving forward on an application for hopefully get some step 2 USDA rural development grant money like we got for step 1 and for the wastewater plant. So moving on that. All right. Some rezoning, some boring stuff. If you have a property and you feel that the zone it's in doesn't fit its use, you go to the planning and zoning board.
Good to know.
And you ask them, I've got a building. The one we're looking at is over here where Boom Fitness is. It's for some reason still M2, which is manufacturing, and no manufacturing takes place. There's a gym and the rest is mostly storage. So the rezoning goes from M2 to B1, which is business. And I know there'll be another request next month for another property. Same thing, manufacturing to business. So zoning does in some ways limit what you can do, or different setbacks in terms of how far buildings have to be from property lines. So there are times there's an advantage to rezone, but that's what that's about. We changed this is interesting actually. Not that the other things weren't, but this one I think is somewhat interesting. So our past ordinance for general misdemeanor penalties, some of those misdemeanors had potential jail time attached to them if fees weren't paid or whatnot. The state legislative body has said that it is unfair or unconstitutional or something that to charge people and have jail time without offering them representation in court. So it's that, I need a lawyer. So to comply with that new state law, and that we don't have a fund, there's no fund for that currently in the city's budget. We changed the code, or beginning to change the code to, it went through its first reading, so 2 more readings. We'll probably skip the second and go straight to the third on December 18th because we have to get this done before the beginning of 2018 to stay in compliance with state code. But we're removing the jail time ramification from the misdemeanors. And one of the council members asked Police Chief Dave Thomas, do you feel that this will have an effect? I'm not sure if he meant that people would just not take them seriously. He says, I don't believe it will. Misdemeanors are the smallest scale of a crime, and they're almost always just some fine. So whether or not we go back, our city attorney said we can go back. We're doing recodification where we update our whole code and tie certain crimes that we feel should be punishable by jail time, and then put that back in for those specific crimes is an option, But then we would have to create a fund that would pay for public defense if a person were charged and wanted public defense. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm not going to make my opinion. Keep my opinion to myself. But
any ideas how often that has happened or comes
I think that's going to be something that we're going to want to know before we make that decision.
And that's part of what
this was just like, hey, the state changed the law. They're not giving us much time. We got to get
now
this.
We need to think about.
Yeah, we have to get this changed to be in compliance with it by 2018, which happens. This isn't the first time that I've reported that we've had to change a law to comply with the state in a pretty short time frame. So that does happen.
By the way, we're speaking with Michael Halley, 4th Ward council person. Well, you do the math there. This is James Moore, and we're talking about city business on KRUU-FM here with FMC in the house, fmc.com, Fairfield Media Center. Always good to see Jason. And what else you got on the docket there, sir? All
right. So the ATV ordinance passed from its third to final reading. And along with that, we passed a resolution for an application permit fee. I think it's $35. I don't know if that's a year or one time, and the way it works is you either pay it in the city and it's good for both the city and county, or you pay it in the county and it's both good for both the county and the city. You don't pay it twice. So it doesn't matter where you pay, you're covered.
Where does the money go?
Good question. So I was joking, we want people to pay in the city because then we get that $35, and I sure it's just to cover the administrative time spent filing the paperwork. But yeah, I think as soon as when it's passed by the council, then there's a few days period of time where it gets published somewhere publicly, and then about a week after that, it becomes law. So soon, I'm sure there's some people who have their ATVs ready to go, but most of us feel it's going to be a small number that you actually see on the road, especially with all the restrictions and the expense to make them roadworthy. But you may start seeing a few here, a few there. All right, Mayor, he set the special city council meeting for January 2nd. We're going to meet, it's a Tuesday, we're going to meet at 7 p.m. And that's when there's any change in the council, which we have a new council member, Paul Gandy, taking over John Rivalinsky's 2nd Ward seat, and anyone reelected. So the mayor was reelected, I was reelected, Doug Flournoy. We have to be sworn in. So we'll do that at that meeting. And then I believe the mayor usually assigns the committee member roles. So there are 7 committees, 7 council members. So each council member is a chairperson of one committee and then sits on 2 others. So there are 3 members per committee. Is there choice in that, or is it precedent, or is it just more? I'm not sure. I think it's, the mayor, usually just comes up with it. I think he's asked a couple of times. Okay. Well, no, it's just interesting. That is a role. You try to think of what role the mayor really has. If it's a tie, he comes in. Otherwise, he doesn't. And of course, the police chief doesn't have a vote on a tie. Oh, it doesn't? Not in Fairfield. Oh, okay. I thought that was part of the rule. Never gets to vote. Poor guy. Oh, that's all right. But it's just, that obviously this kind of role is a big one. Yeah. Determining the makeup. Well, and if somebody felt strongly, maybe they'd object. But it's actually, I've been on the council 8 years. I've been on all but one committee. And that's really good. It helps you see the various aspects of what the city deals with. So, yeah, it would be great if there's some shakeup. But yeah, I think January 2nd. So Tuesday, January 2nd, 7 p.m. But I think congratulations, Paul Gandy. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Paul Gandy, yeah. And also Revalinsky served a long time, huh? Yep. So do you know how many years? Is it 20? Yeah, a long row. It blows my mind to say that, 20 years. So December 18th will be John's last meeting, and he says he will be there. So I'm sure we'll have some very kind words to say, and maybe, I don't know, parting gift. I don't know if we're allowed to legally give him a parting gift, but maybe we can if we just pitch in for it. Don't use public funds. A gold watch. No, I guess not. Something. All right. Committee and board reports real quick. Personnel committee, we met and we did, city engineer Melanie Carlson had her 6-month performance evaluation. It's very standard in a contract to have a probationary period where everyone's making sure everyone's a good fit for each other. And so she passed with flying colors, had a great review. And so then her salary goes up a little bit and she gets some vacation days. It's kind of again, after the probationary period. That's pretty typical. So we're glad to have her. She's been doing great work. She really helped fill in while we were without an administrator. So I should mention that our new city administrator, Aaron Koiker.
Pardon?
Koiker.
Koiker. That's not hard to say. Koiker. It's like Corker without the
Yeah, without the exactly.
Koiker.
So, yeah, Koiker.
Nice.
Koiker. Aaron just started last night, his first meeting. He is the type of guy who is quiet and listens and takes in. So he did that, and he's going to continue to do that until he really feels like he's learning.
I was thinking of Jeopardy.
Absorbing.
A vowel, please. Anyway, sorry. Well, good. That's great.
Yeah. So welcome, Aaron. And I know he's meeting with the council members and just meeting with people in the community and just learning and absorbing as much as he can.
Welcome to Fairfield.
Yep. Ways and Means Committee. We heard from Iowa Wind and Solar, who put together a proposal for solar at almost every city building, I guess that where it could work. And it's a pretty big proposal. Ways and Means looked at it and then requested a little bit more information about each one separately because, for example, if you install something at either the waterworks plant or the wastewater plant, those are enterprise funds. They have their own revenue stream and their own budgets, as opposed to the general fund, things like the fire station and such. So we wanted it separated out. So I think they're scheduled to come back on December 18th.
What about like an Ideal Energy in the mix, or how does it work? That who gets to present this, or
So if it's a project, by law, if it's over a certain dollar amount, it has to go to competitive bidding.
Mm-hmm.
If it's what's called a power purchase agreement, where an investor owns it and leases it, or has a kind of a buyout option, something, that's considered a service agreement and is actually exempt from the same laws that require competitive bidding.
I see.
That being said, what we're seeing from my day job position is
I was going to say a little bit of
every public entity, from cities to schools, do RFPs just because you want to get other bids. So we'll see what comes of it. Depends what the council decides. I think at most I'll probably have to abstain.
Michael works at Ideal.
Yeah, I work at Ideal Energy, so I don't want to have any sort of conflict of interest. But yeah, it's always an advantage to see.
I didn't bring it up
options.
for that. I just mean it's a local company, and
Yep.
I know they do great work and have done a lot with the library and elsewhere. So
yeah. So Public Safety and Transportation Committee, they're still looking into a curfew. I'm almost done. Looking into a curfew, which we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what they come back with. And I can't remember what else.
But what does that mean, a curfew? We talked about
we would
it.
have a curfew for kids under 18, and for the first time in probably the history of the city now.
And why would somebody want to do that?
Apparently,
or where does it come from?
It's coming from the police. They say that there's a handful of juvenile delinquents that it would help with, because then there would be something enforceable. Like they see them out at 2, 3 a.m. They say go home. But right now there's no law, and so those kids can be out doing whatever, and whatever is usually some sort of vandalism. So again,
but I just say vandalism, of course, is always against the law, right?
Yeah.
So I don't. Well, anyway, It's
interesting. I was really not into it because I'm more about liberty and freedom and fewer laws than more.
Yeah.
And then I saw something that I need to look into. It was a video, and it was one of these. This is what this country did, and they said they put a curfew, and it really helped. So I don't know.
Well, Portugal got rid of all drug laws, and drug addiction went down, and by getting rid of, and not just on marijuana, as is happening in this country, but across the board.
Yeah.
Well, and there are examples of things, but I just wanted, so it's coming from the police, and that's something the council is considering?
The committees.
The committee. Oh, it goes from committee then to council.
If it makes it that far.
Yeah.
So we'll see. More on that. But yeah, there was a curfew in my hometown, and I felt like it was a lot of times wasting the police time chasing around teenagers who were just kind of doing it for the thrill. I mean, we weren't lawbreakers. We were just punks. The last thing is...
I don't mean to... Just on this point, I mean, it doesn't mean... Having a curfew it's always illegal to vandalize or to do things. I mean, the things that are against the law are against the law, whether there's a curfew or not. But it just seems a little draconian for people that might be out past a certain time for whatever reason. But I mean, it's not even out of committee yet, right? So it's just something that's come up, and we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
What is the process like? A month or something? Probably not until next year because I
have no idea when
the next one council meeting.
Yeah, right. I really doubt it's going to come up at this next December 18th meeting. But yeah, I mean, we just, like with everything, we try to look at the evidence. You know, what's worked in other towns. Why did it work? Is it needed here?
And also, when it gets to the point where there'll be public input, we're not even there yet. So
no, I mean, well,
settle down, young man.
A person could go to the committee meeting if they wanted.
Yep.
But
and that is a good thing to always remind people.
Yeah, and they're posted on.
By the way, it's a good thing to do if there's a particular interest you have, because that's the point where it's being formalized, and it's a good thing.
Committee is really where you can hash out things in a more informal. Last thing is just on the project update from City Engineer Melanie Carlson. I think most people who live on the street are aware of this, but Adams Avenue, the portion that was torn up, was hoping to get repaved.
By the way, I'm sorry because now I'm doing words. You mean people that live on that street, not that most people that live on the street.
On the street of Adams Avenue. You got it. Yes. Or people, well, anyway, maybe the people who live on the street know it too. Alliant needed to move a gas main and bury it lower, and they just started that work. And so we've gotten too far into the cold season to pour. So it won't be poured until spring. Just want to let everyone know, if you're driving on Adams and you hit a gravelly patch, thank your friends. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to say it.
That sounds like...
It wasn't the city's fault.
Well, you know what Linda Ronstadt once said, poor, pitiful me, and that'll do it for City Biz. And where's Siesta Ocho when you need it? Oh, yeah, I have to hit the button. Well, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Michael Halley, for coming in. And also, Jason Strong. And that'll do it for this segment. Don't do anything you wouldn't do.